My name is McComas Taylor. I'm from Australia. I'm the Professor of Sanskrit at the Australian National University in Canberra. I'm also the Secretary General of the International Association of Sanskrit Studies, which is the body behind the World Sanskrit Conference. Well, I have a background in Asian literature, and one day in 1995, I watched Peter Brook's production of Mahabharatam. This is the 6-hour video version of his 12-hour stage play. It was a full moon night in September. It's a very long program, and it didn't finish until 1:30 in the morning. And at 1:30 in the morning, I went out onto my back step. It was a full moon night, and I took a vow that I would spend the next 10 years studying Sanskrit so I could read Mahabharatam in the original. And the next day, I went out and I bought a book called Teach Yourself Sanskrit, which is a terrible book. It's almost the worst place you could begin. But I battled through that. I found some nice tutors, some nice mentors. I went back to university in my mid-40s at that stage. And I've really been in love with Sanskrit ever since. So it was the discovery of the Mahabharatam by me on that full moon night that changed my life forever. I watched that and I started studying Sanskrit partly by myself, partly with nice mentors and supporters. I read Ramayanam first, and then I began the fabulous task of reading Mahabharatam in the original. I read 1 page a day when I'm at home, and I'm just about 7/8 of the way through. It's taken me 12 years to get this stage. So I think it'll be another 3 or 4 years until I finish it. But then what will I do? Now, my problem is I can't remember what I have read. So there's only one solution. I'll go back to page 1 and read it again. Oh, it's quite different. The video version was wonderful. It was intense. And strangely enough, even though it's now 30 years since I saw that video version, and when I'm reading the text, I still apply the faces from the video version to the characters in the text. So Duryodhana looks like Duryodhana. Yudhishthira looks like Yudhishthira. Arjuna is that Arjuna. So it had a very deep effect on me. But there's so much more than just the story of the Pandavas in Mahabharatam. It's a wonderful encyclopedia of traditional Hindu knowledge. So the earliest records of Sanskrit in Nepal probably date back, or at least an Indic inscription, date back to the pillar of Ashoka at Lumbini, which marks the birthplace of the Buddha. So that inscription is of enormous significance because it enables historians and scholars at least to have an approximate date for the birth of the Buddha. So Sanskrit is probably 2,500 years old in its current format. So 500 BCE, a wonderful scholar, a grammarian by the name of Panini from what is now Pakistan, sat down and compiled rules that described the language that his educated peers were speaking. And those rules, those actually 4,000 rules, define classical Sanskrit. And classical Sanskrit has not changed in that time. So from 500 BCE through to 2025, this language, the grammar has remained unchanged. Now, what was Panini working with? Where did this language come from? So the language that Panini defined, which we call classical Sanskrit, is a direct descendant of an earlier language. And that earlier language is the language of the Vedas. So many people know the Rig Veda, for example. Now that language is extremely complex, varied, irregular. And Panini and his community by that stage had simplified and regularized the old Vedic language. And the name they used for this form, this perfected form of the old Vedic language was Samskrita. And Samskrita means perfected, made together. And so classical Sanskrit, which is the Sanskrit we know and love now, is a rather simplified and perfected version of the much earlier Vedic language. So in Vedic language, for example, there may be 2 or 3 different endings that you can put on a word. Makes it very complicated. But in classical Sanskrit, it's been fixed to a single form for that word. So it's much simpler than the old Vedic language. That is not to say it's in any sense simple, but it is wonderful for its complexity and its beauty, but it's very much more regular than the earlier Vedic language. So Sanskrit grammar never changes, but of course the vocabulary changes. So as new inventions are made, new words are created. And I can remember years and years ago teaching the students the word for bicycle, dvichakrika. But they said they didn't have bicycles then, but I said they've got bicycles now, so we need a word for it. And they say, but that word's made up. But I say, all words are made up. They didn't come out of the grass or the stones. So every word is made up. So of course, Sanskrit as a modern language, as a modern spoken language, has evolved or created a vocabulary to deal with modern life. So everything you can say in English effectively, you can also say in Sanskrit. Someone, somewhere, has made up a word whenever it is needed. So my favorite one is Vidyut Patram Chalani. So Vidyut Patram, Vidyut means lightning, but it actually also means electricity, and it also means electronics. Patram means leaf, but it also means letter. So a Vidyut Patram looks like it means a lightning leaf, but it also means email. So a Chalani is a sieve. So a Vidyut, which will also do for a filter. So Vidyut Patram Chalani is a spam filter. This is not my first time in Nepal. The first time I came to Nepal, I brought my young son with me. He was 9 years old. This year is his 39th birthday. So I know it's a long time since I was in Nepal. It doesn't feel like it. I don't know where the decades have gone. 30 years, my second time. What I remember is how very pleasant the people of Nepal are. There's always a smile, there's always a namaste, there's always an anjali. It's absolutely lovely. So the people in the street, people in the shops, people in the hotel, the helpers at the World Sanskrit Conference. So it's that warmth I find very, very attractive. I'm a sucker for a warm smile. Well, there's a very nice, friendly, welcoming, informal atmosphere here. Sometimes they, hang on, I think I'll just say that. Let me say it again. What I think makes the conference, the World Sanskrit Conference in Kathmandu special is there is a very warm, friendly, welcoming atmosphere that I'm really enjoying. And I think it's the people of Nepal have created that lovely, welcoming atmosphere that I'm enjoying. So Sanskrit in the present day is in an interesting position. So Sanskrit in contemporary India and contemporary Nepal is in a very interesting situation at the moment. The growth of spoken Sanskrit is really rapid these days. And so there are news programs, there's a publishing industry, plays, dramas, poetry is being written in Sanskrit. So it's really enjoying a renaissance as part of, I think, India searching a new national identity and drawing on the historical past as a way of creating this national identity. So Sanskrit is enjoying quite a renaissance at the moment. So I think a lot of it has to do particularly perhaps with younger people, young scholars. It's a way of rediscovering their cultural past or their cultural heritage. It gives them something to rejoice in. So one of the most magnificent pieces of Sanskrit literature was written by a scholar called Ashvaghosha in the 1st century of the current era. And his work was called Buddha Charita, so the deeds of the Buddha. Now, there is only one manuscript of that sublimely wonderful work, and it was preserved in a library right here in Kathmandu. Years ago, 100 years ago, a scholar discovered this manuscript of this absolutely extraordinary poem about the life of the Buddha. It's the only one version of this. And if that text hadn't been preserved in Nepal, it would have been lost forever. So in that sense, it's one of Nepal's great contributions to world scholarship, the fact that that extraordinary, unique manuscript was preserved in a library right here in Kathmandu. My friends at the university laugh at me because I say Sanskrit is the language of the future. It's been around for 3,000 years. It's probably going to be around for another 3,000 years. So I think Sanskrit will outlast any other language. And because it never changes, I say it reached perfection 2,500 years ago. And if you've reached perfection, where is there to go? So Sanskrit, the future of Sanskrit, I think is assured, but the nature of that future is unclear. Sanskrit studies in the West are declining. Every year there are fewer and fewer universities teaching Sanskrit. Sanskrit is very much alive and well in South Asia, but it will be important to see what direction it takes, whether the sorts of profound scholarship, profound and insightful scholarship can be continued. Sure, it's wonderful if everyone learns to speak Sanskrit, but that's not what Sanskrit is really about. Sanskrit is much more than just a little bit of spoken Sanskrit. I think the most special thing about the World Sanskrit Conference is people coming together from all over the world with a shared interest, with a common interest. We all love Sanskrit, but we so rarely get a chance to see one another. So we meet old friends, we make new friends. And I think a conference like this changes good friends into great friends. So it really builds the community. And a community of scholars is very important for any discipline. It gives us energy, it enthuses us. We go home with new collaborations, new ideas, promises of what we will get done in the next 3 years before we meet again. So it's a great catalyst of bringing people together and re-energizing them and reigniting those friendships.